Hello, everybody. This is Tiana, and I believe I am live. I think I'm live. And so, welcome everybody to this masterclass. Welcome everybody to Genesis. I'd just like to take a moment while everyone is joining to express my gratitude for your presence, express my appreciation for you being here, for tuning in, for feeling called to be a part of this group, Soul of Sophia, for receiving this transmission, for receiving me, for receiving Genesis. And so I'm really, really excited to come back to Genesis again and again and again. And I've been journeying with these codes for quite some time. So it's always amazing to see the ongoing depth of the journey, the ongoing levels and layers of the journey, and just to deepen further into these codes that are so near and dear to my own experience. And so the way that I have set this masterclass up and the way that I desire to offer it is in 3 different parts. So I'll go over the 3 different parts and let you know sort of what you can expect. The first part is just going to be an introduction to Genesis. So a little bit about my journey with these codes and my remembering and my experience, and also like what this means. What does Genesis mean, and why is it relevant for our journey? Why is it important to receive this inner knowing? And then the second part of the masterclass will roll into like the starting and ending point of accessing our original template, the starting and ending point of accessing our Genesis. And then the last part of this masterclass is going to speak on divine union through communion, and this being the path of Genesis. Okay, so those are the 3 different parts to this transmission. And at the very end, once the transmission is complete, I will speak to all of the different ways that you can work with me and just receive support on your journey. Okay, so introduction to Genesis. This is such a profound word for me and for my experienced and have journeyed so deeply with this word, and I have received this word and its codes in so many different ways that I'm really excited to share with you today. And so I just wanted to begin this masterclass by sharing a little bit about my journey with Genesis and sort of how it entered into my field, into my awareness, into my life. Okay, so I'm going to start with this story, and it's a little bit humorous, but it is so relevant and it wants to be spoken. And I am guided very much to share this part of my journey. And if you have been following me for some time, I've shared about this before. So maybe you've read about it or I've talked about it previously, but nevertheless, many years ago, maybe when I was like in the initial stages of my awakening, of my journeying, of my spirituality, one of my friends invited me to a workshop that I was an immediate yes to. And at this workshop, there was the psychic, and he was just a receiver of like so much knowledge and answers, and we can sort of just ask him any question and he would have an answer for it. So nevertheless, I was at this workshop, and at one point, like, he went into a meditation, and what looked to me like the communion with the other side, like beyond the veils, maybe with his spirit guides, more communion with God, wherever he received his knowledge from. And he sort of came out of that and told me, like, oh my goodness, you were the first woman on earth. And that just like took me aback a little bit. And I was like, oh, that is so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And he went into the story that came with that statement of telling me that I was the first woman. And he sort of told me, like, oh, you were the first one to volunteer here, and you were really excited to come down into this dimension. And he went on to say how this was like in prehistoric times. And anyway, to not get so into it, that was basically the message. And that was really the first time that entered into my field, like just this concept of Genesis that I didn't really pay too much attention to. And it was a little bit humorous. And I was like, oh, yeah, like that's interesting. That's cool, whatever. I didn't think too much about it. And I sort of forgot all about it until a couple of years later, or like a few years later, some time after. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I had a very powerful, and still do, a very powerful telepathic connection to her. And we would just commune sort of like all throughout my pregnancy. And she would always tell me like what she wanted to eat. And in one of my meditation sessions, she told me her name, and she told me that her name was Azuda, which I fell in love with. And I was so grateful to receive that. And it was an entire journey sort of exploring what her name meant. And there's so many different meanings to her name. And it was really a joyous part of my journey to sort of dive deep into all of the meanings of her name. So that was really fun for me. And after she came to Earthside, and I think some time passed, so I received a message on Instagram. I believe it was from somebody in India, and they were just like, "Oh, were you aware that Azura is the name of Eve's daughter? Like Azura is the name of Eve's first daughter." And this sort of blew me away, and I had no idea. And I looked into it, and in fact, through like my Google searching, I came to know that, yeah, Azura was Eve's first daughter's name. So I just found that to be so fascinating. And I made the link back to my experience with this psychic, like the first psychic that I ever went to that was like telling me that I was the first woman on earth. So those were like two distinct points in my journey that made an imprint or an experience of remembering this whole idea about Genesis. And this is really when all of the codes started to consciously stream in, like, oh, there's some meaning behind receiving these messages. There's some deeper importance to all of this. And sort of after that was when I really started hearing the word Genesis and connecting to the word Genesis. And I believe it was in 2019 that I first offered like a course on Genesis and coming back to our original blueprints, coming back to our Genesis. So sort of these points in time that made imprints in my consciousness to really direct my focus towards this word and this coding and the meaning and the deeper gnosis behind it. And then much later on, and this was most recently in my journey, not so recently, but maybe like 6 months to a year ago, I was really for one point in time having the experience of healing, but as Eve, like I would go into these trances, I would go into these meditations and I would heal at the cellular level, like healing at the cellular level and at the memory imprints of like Eve, whether that is from a collective memory or from a personal memory, like there's no really separation, but it was another instance where it just drew me back to the importance of Genesis and it fortified that connection to me. So it's really like those three experiences on my journey that connected me so deeply to these codes and to this remembrance and to this inner gnosis. And so with that, I just want to share sort of that this is all from my personal experience and preface this masterclass just with the knowing that this is all coming from my personal experience and my journey of awakening. And it is very much a feminine journey. So if you are a masculine receiving this or listening to this, this may or may not resonate because the healing journey and the awakening journey for the masculine can look a lot different. So as always, just take what resonates and leave what doesn't, and that's for everyone. Okay, so all of these experiences really connected me to Genesis, both in the collective sense and on a deeper personal level of understanding. Sort of everything that we do on our journey, everything on our spiritual journey is for the purpose of Genesis, is for the purpose of coming back to the truth of who we are, and is for the purpose of coming back to that original point of creation, coming back to that original blueprint, coming back to that original consciousness. And so this is really what Genesis means to me, is the journey of undoing, the journey of healing, the journey of recollecting and reunifying all aspects of ourselves. It is the journey of coming home to ourselves, to that original self, to that true self. And there are so many levels to this. It's almost like every single dimension is a level to this. And then beyond the dimensions, we have the harmonics. And then beyond the harmonics is like God, is source. And it's so interesting that as we continue on this journey towards Genesis, as we continue on this journey of undoing everything that is not in alignment with the truth of who we are, we come to discover all of the different levels and all of the different depths that this journey has to offer us, which is so beautiful and it can be very, very intense and illuminating and constricting. And it's just this like beautiful ascension and then descension back down into these bodies for the integration. Okay, so that is the meaning of Genesis. And like, we as a collective can connect to the word Genesis like through the Bible and through those teachings and through the story of Adam and Eve. But also this word goes beyond just the story of humanity. It's like we have the genesis of our human self, and then we have the genesis of our creator self. And I'll just also share that I had a profound awakening at the beginning of this year. So like very, very recently, I had a really, really big awakening that illuminated to me this new level of Genesis, you can say, like this new level of being that required like this undoing to truly merge with. And so this awakening that I experienced was an awakening to my creator self. And so we have like the genesis of the human self, and then the genesis of the creator self, that was maybe created by God. So that's what I mean. There's like all of these different layers and all of these different harmonics that we are exploring and awakening to on our journey, and that we are coming back to at greater and greater depths. So with that said, like even though our ascension process into the higher dimensions and into the higher harmonics, like of our human self, of our higher soul self, of our monadic self, all of these different levels and all of these different harmonics, which in and of themselves have their own genesis, have their own beginning, have their own individuation point. Regardless of where we are on the journey, it's like we always come back to right here and right now in our bodies, in this present moment. And with that, I would like to go into the second part of the starting and ending point of accessing our original template, which is really the starting and the ending point of accessing our genesis. So regardless of where we're at on our journey, regardless of if our consciousness is dwelling in the third dimensional bandwidth and operating through the 7 chakra system or the 4 dimensional bandwidth operational system through the tree of life, that is the 12 chakra system, or beyond that, accessing our diamond templating and consciousness and the clear light that has now entered through many of our vessels. It doesn't matter where we are at on our journey, because we are required at every single point to come back to this body, to come back to this presence, and to come back into the descension for the integration. And so at all of these different levels of the awakening journey, of all of these different levels of the journey of embodiment, at all of these different levels, it's like we access the higher dimension, the higher levels of ascension, the higher levels of unified consciousness, the higher levels of the harmonic through this body, and really specifically through our hara. So if you've been with me, if you've been following me, if you have been on this journey with me for some time, you know that I've been talking about the hara for many, many years, and that truly this is the access point to each and every level of our genesis. It is the access point to each and every up level in our ascension. It is the access point to our original templates. It is the access point to our awakening, to our embodiment. It's like regardless of where we are on the journey, this is the one still point. This is the one 0 point within our being that we come back to again and again. This is the beginning and this is the end that we journey to again and again, both for our ascension and our descension, both for our expansion and our integration, for our capacity to open up to the new levels of the truth of who we are, and also to bring that truth back down with us into the body, to bring that truth back down with us for the integration, to bring that truth, that gnosis, that expansion, that ascension back down into the here and the now. It's an anchor point for our being. It's an anchor point for our evolution, and it's an anchor point for each and every point of our journey. And so, with all of the changes and transformations and openings and awakenings that we have been experiencing as a collective, this is just one point that we can come back to again and again and again and really find the stillness and the remembrance. And it's like this is really kind of the only portal that allows us to anchor in the truth of who we are, that allows us to go back to that original point of creation at whichever level we are accessing, whether that is the original point of creation of our human self or the original point of creation of our soul self, of our monadic self. Like there are all of these different layers, but none of that really matters, because the only thing that matters is to be right here and right now, anchored inside of our body, anchored deep within our belly, our beautiful, soft and relaxed lower belly. That is the hara, that is the beginning and the end point of this entire journey. The portal to our Genesis at every level, because there are many levels, is through our hara. Regardless of how far I ascend and how far my consciousness expands, one thing always brings me back. And this is the anchoring into the hara, which I find to be the very portal to our Genesis at every level. Because it is from this space that we can ascend to the next harmonic. And it is in this space that we can integrate that ascension, that we can integrate that expansion into these bodies, into this space. It is here that we bring everything home to the now, again and again, through the dropping in to the hara. And so it is through this space that I've experienced really all of my major awakening, particularly the most potent one. And this was really when I first began the practice of soft belly meditation, which was just the most beautiful journey into connecting with the hara, with the womb, with the space of the no thing, with the infinite potentiality of creation that resides within us. So it was really through this work of practicing soft belly meditations that I awakened this center, and that I ascended into the next level of the journey, really going from like the tree of knowledge templating, the tree of good and evil, which is the 7 chakra template system, into the 12 chakra tree of life system. Like that was a really, really huge part of the spiritual journey that was specifically and like very evidently for me accessed through the hara. And then sort of after that, it's coming back again and again to this place for the integration, for that 0 point stillness, for the anchoring and the embodiment. For home in here and now. Okay. So I'm just going to take a moment and just check in and see where we're at. Okay. And then moving from the starting and ending point of accessing our Genesis, accessing our original templating, moving closer towards the individuation of our human or of our soul or of our monad, wherever you are on your journey. This is the portal and the place to come back to again and again and again, both for the ascension and for the integration. Okay, and for the third part, that is the path of Genesis. So we just spoke to the portal of Genesis, like how and where in our bodies we access our original templating, where in our bodies we access the portal to our original consciousness, the portal to our organic blueprint. And now we're going to talk about the path. So the path of Genesis. And the path of Genesis is one of divine union. And the path of Genesis is the divine union through communion. Okay. And so what this really means, like divine union through communion, communion is our moment to moment intimate relating with either ourselves or with God or with any aspect of the divine, whether that is our spirit guides, our angels, our earth family. Communion is the intimate relating with any and all aspects of creation. And so we come into divine union through this communion, through the relating with ourselves first and foremost. And this is truly the path of Genesis. And this is truly how we, at every level of the ascension, at every level of the path back to Genesis, back to our original point of creation, this is how we move through the journey. This is how we come closer to our Genesis. This is how we ascend. through divine union. This is the entire spiritual journey, actually, is divine union. It's like the path is the divine union, and then the destination is Genesis. If there is a destination, then this is how we can relate to it. And this is how we can understand it. It's like through the path of divine union, through communion, we are approaching our Genesis. We are approaching our organic consciousness. And when I say organic consciousness or organic blueprint, it's like the part of ourselves that is closest to the individuation from God, that is closest to the individuation from Source. So we have like God as the ultimate creator, and then God created like the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and then there's like so many dimensions and so many fractals and so many aspects of creation, and it's like there's so many levels of creation and of creator, and we're sort of like on our journey all the way back up to that highest point of individuation. Okay, and we get to that point through divine union, first within and also without. Okay, so the more that we come down into the lower dimensions, the more that we become fragmented. It's like the lower dimensions and densities cannot behold the wholeness of who we are. And so we like split off into many, many different parts. And then our journey and our purpose and our job for many of us is to recollect all of these different aspects and bring them back. Like this is soul retrieval work. This is how we reunify all aspects of ourselves. This is how we go through the initial stages of alchemizing our individuated soul. It's like, so once we've collected all of the fragments, then our own soul sort of ascends into the one world soul. And actually, this is Sophia. So this is the soul of Sophia. Right. So once we've done the work of collecting all of the fragments and we ascend, it's like our drop of water goes back into the ocean at this level. Our drop of water, that is our individuated soul, re-emerges back into the one world soul. And that is like the level of soul. And then we go even higher into the level of the monad. And then there's like, who knows how many levels and layers there are beyond that. But at each and every level, it's like we are on the path of divine union. We are on the path of reunifying all of the fractals back into the one. And this is actually kind of the entire ascension journey back into oneness, back into a wholeness, back into our Genesis that is our self prior to all of the trauma and the programming and the fragmentation. And so I really, for this last part, would like to talk about like practically how we reunify and how do we come into this divine inner union, especially through communion with self. So at all of the different layers, divine inner union is required, but also divine outer union is required as well. And there are divine unions at each harmonic. There's a divine union at the level of integrating our soul, which can typically be with a twin flame. And then there is also a reunification and divine union that is beyond the soul, that is now at the monad level. And based on collective languaging, that divine union can take place with a genetic equal. So both are requirements for integration. And so what I really want to talk about today is the divine inner union, what we can do as individuals at every single level of this journey or this game or this like hologram, whatever you want to call it, or this creation or reality. How can we come into that divine inner union through communion with ourself? And so I also want to preface this. It's like, you don't have to do this work. Some of us have to, for sure. Some of us have to do it, especially at different stages and at different points of our journey. And when you have to do it, you'll know. The ascension and the integration and the journey towards Genesis is happening on an individual level, on a collective level, on a universal level, on like from the micro to the macro, we're all ascending. So this is what I mean, like regardless of what we do, we're still going to ascend, but depending on whether this is your soul purpose, whether this is your calling, whether this is your true desire to come back into divine union consciously. And if you desire to be an active participant in your coming back to wholeness, coming back to that divine inner union, then this is where the work can be really, really helpful. This is where we can use this framework that I'm going to speak into to reunify each and every aspect of our fragmented self, to integrate and alchemize and exalt each and every trauma that we may be carrying. So really, this is how we access all the different points of fragmentation, how we reunify our consciousness, and how we quantum leap in our ascension through the unification of our consciousness, through the unification of all of the different fractals of ourself, through the reunification of any and all parts that might have been exiled out of our conscious awareness. Okay, so any single time that we experience any symptom, anything that is indicating to us that we are not fully and completely embodied in the truth of who we truly are, and we're kind of unconscious of the deeper meaning of that symptom, there's a split and a fragmentation in the consciousness that requires reunification. So I'm going to give a really concrete example. So anytime we have a bodily pain, or anytime we are suffering from any sort of ailment, whether that be a physical disease or a mental disease or anything that is not in alignment with the truth of who we are as joy, as love, as bliss, like any symptom from physical pain to mental pain or exhaustion to any kind of behaviors that you know are not in alignment with the highest truth of who you are. It's like, and we can't quite understand the message that this physical bodily sensation or emotion or thought or symptom, we'll call it, is sending to us. It's like there is a fragmentation, and we can notice that and allow it to take its own course. We can allow it to unfold in its natural way just by either observing it, being with it, meditating on it, whatever your path is that you choose. And unfortunately, what has been the case collectively, it's like we're not only allowing, like we're not even allowing that to present itself. We're not allowing the symptoms to naturally unfold. We're like preventing them. So this is kind of the entire Western medical model of any symptom that arises. We actually want to stop it. We want to disconnect from it. We don't want to feel it. We don't want to commune with it. We want to stop it in its tracks and numb ourselves from it, disassociate from it, take medication that will allow us to further ignore it. Okay, so that's the opposite of just allowing it to naturally unfold through our witnessing and our awareness of it. So the next level from that is integrating it and coming into divine union with it and communing with it. So we come into divine union with whatever it is that we're experiencing through our communion with it. Okay, so there's like there's kind of these different levels and ways in which we can approach any one of our experiences that are indicating to us that something is going on beneath the surface, like something is happening, something is moving, something is moving, energy is moving. We can either suppress it, ignore it, hope that it goes away, and like actively participate in that process by taking any sort of medication that prevents us from being with it. And I'm absolutely not against any choice that any individual takes. Like if that is a part of a journey, there is a time and a space to use medication for your healing, to use that type of intervention if it's in alignment with the path. So I just wanted to share that. There's nothing wrong with that. And then the next level would be just being with it, sitting with it, feeling it, allowing it to naturally unfold. And then beyond that is finding the root cause, like finding the individuation point of the symptom, taking the symptom and tracing it all the way back to its root, taking the symptom and tracing it all the way back to its original trauma. And this is another way that we access our genesis, is by going to the root of everything, like going to the very beginning of whatever it is that we are experiencing that we know is not in alignment with the truth of who we are, whether that be addictions or depression, anxiety, anger, overeating, controlling anything that is really protecting us. So this is going into the framework that I'm going to talk about, which I have termed as unburden. That actually is a quantum and alchemical process of healing, of reunifying, of coming back into divine union through communion that stems from a psychotherapeutic practice that is called family systems. That is an amazing practice that really allows us to access the original wound, that allows us to access the original trauma for the purpose of healing, for the purpose of alchemizing and exalting and integrating, for the purpose of coming back into our wholeness, for the purpose of divine inner union, for the purpose of coming back to our genesis. Okay, and I love this system so much because it helps us to commune with each and every aspect of our being, and it helps us through that communion to integrate and to bring into union and to come back into our wholeness and to come back essentially to our genesis. Okay, so I love this system because its framework includes the true self. Its framework recognizes that we all have an inner self, an inner true self that is the unwavering witness, that is the compassionate witness, that is the joy and the love and the benevolent presence that resides within us. Okay, and so the system recognizes this aspect of each and every individual as something that we all have in common, which I just find to be so beautiful and just so beautiful. So this framework recognizes a compassionate true self that dwells deep within us. And so with that recognition, it also identifies that which is not of our true self, that which is not our true essence, that which is there simply to protect us. And so we have like the true self, the truth of who we are as compassionate, benevolent beings. And then we have these two other parts. For simplicity's sake, we have the exile. So these are all of the parts of self that have been exiled out of conscious awareness, that have been removed from our conscious awareness so that we can carry on with our life, so that we can carry on with our being. The exiled aspects of self are truly those aspects of self that have been traumatized, that have experienced deep and profound pain, for which in the moment there was no resolution, and the only way that we could carry on is by allowing this aspect to exist within a time capsule outside of our conscious awareness. So this is where we can understand soul fragmentation. We can understand our unconscious mind, which is responsible for, I think, like 90% of our waking reality, right? So it's really our unconscious mind that creates most of our reality, that creates most of our experiences. And the path to healing is really bringing that which is unconscious into the light of awareness, that which is unconscious, and integrating it back into the wholeness of the self. And so all of these different aspects that have been too difficult to keep within our conscious awareness, we've exiled them. And we'll call them the exiles, like kind of like the traumatized aspects of self, the parts of self that carry that original wounding. And then all of the symptoms that we experience, everything else that is not in alignment with our true essence, with our true nature, are the protectors. Like, this is the language that we use in the family systems therapy, is protectors. So like whether we are experiencing depression or anxiety or addiction or anger or violence or any and all behaviors that are not in alignment with our compassionate and benevolent self, it's like all of these emotions and these like automatic thoughts and these behaviors are there to protect us. And they're protecting us from the exile. So every time that we get triggered, or every time that like the part of our self that has been traumatized and that is carrying that original wound, that is carrying that pain, every time that we experience a trigger, it's like that gets shaken up a little bit and that tries to come to the forefront of our awareness. And then all of the protective mechanisms come online to protect us from consciously being in a relationship with that aspect of self that we have removed from our conscious awareness. Okay, so it is through this path of divine union and communion that we're retrieving these exiled pieces, not only to heal them, to alchemize them, but to exalt them into the truth of who they are that is in alignment with that benevolent, compassionate self. So let me know if you're following how this is landing for you, where you're at with this. And I'm just going to take a moment to check in. Beautiful. So with this divine union through communion, through the communion with the protector, through the communion with our symptoms, like once we come into a conscious relationship with the part of ourself that is protecting us from reliving our trauma, from being aware of our trauma, from reliving our trauma, through this communion, it's like we can access the exile, we can access the original wound, we can access that which requires healing so that we can be free from all of the symptoms, so that we can be free from all that is in the way of us coming back to our genesis, all that is in the way of us coming back to our wholeness, all that is in the way of us being in alignment with the truth of who we are as a compassionate and benevolent divine being. So it is through this communion, and I can use an example like if I have the experience of, let's say, asthma, if anyone has the experience with asthma or whatever it may be, like whether it's a headache or whether it's anxiety or whether it's depression, we can come into the communion simply by communicating, simply by checking in and relating to our experience, relating to our asthma, relating to our symptoms, understanding that it's there to protect us, understanding its divine role and purpose, which automatically activates our true nature that is compassionate. It automatically brings about a sense of compassion. It automatically brings us into alignment with our true self, recognizing the divine rule of our symptom, of that which is causing us oftentimes great suffering, and coming into communion from this perspective, from this understanding that this in fact is there to protect me, we can then soften as we approach it with compassion for ourselves and our experience. And so what this communion looks like is inquiring, what is it protecting you from? What is the symptom protecting you from? And so every time there's a call, there is also a response. And every time we make a call to commune with our symptom, with whatever it is that is causing us great suffering, with whatever it is that is not in alignment with the truth of who we are, then there is a response. And that which is troubling us, that which is indicating to us that something is happening beneath the surface, something must be looked at, something must be integrated, something is here for me. It'll show us and it'll bring us to the exile. And it is in these moments that we have access to the exile, that we have access to the original wound, to the original trauma, that we can come in as our true self, as our compassionate and benevolent selves, and commune with the part of us that has been fragmented, commune with the exile and inquire, what is it that you need? Where can I bring you? And these parts oftentimes are very much looking for a safe place. And every time I do this work with either myself or with others, the answer is always something like the beach or the forest or heaven or some place that's really, really beautiful. And so interpsychically in the quantum realms, we retrieve this exile, this unconscious aspect, this fragmented part, this traumatized piece of our consciousness. We bring it into safety and we allow it to unburden. We allow it to release the trauma. We allow it to heal. And this process of alchemization happens effortlessly and naturally. And this is sort of what is called the unburdening part. It's like this exiled piece of consciousness that we've now retrieved through our communion, that we're now bringing into divine union with the wholeness of who we are witnessing it unburden itself and release the trauma and alchemize into its true nature. And so we can use this simple framework that is so beautiful to understand our trauma, to understand how trauma works, to understand how all of the fragmented pieces of our consciousness that are preventing us or in the way of us truly ascending into unity, truly ascending into oneness, first within ourselves, first within our own body, in our own awareness, in our own consciousness, we can begin to understand how our system is working, and we can approach all of the different messages that our mind body is sending us to let us know that there is something there for us, to let us know that something is requiring our attention, something is requiring the process of retrieving an aspect of our consciousness, that something is requiring healing here. And once we understand this framework, then we can truly come into that divine inner union by reunifying all of these traumatized pieces that we've been carrying from the beginning. From each point of genesis, from each point of individuation, every single time that anything has happened that required integration but didn't receive the attention that it needed, it has lived on in a kind of time capsule that we've carried as baggage from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, and that causes us tremendous suffering. And this is how we heal from the root in a very simple way that anyone can do. And especially if you've been on the healing journey for some time, then this is just like an effortless way to be in constant communion with your system, to be in constant witnessing of that which is arising, to commune with you, to communicate with you, to call in your attention. So of course you can always like use this if you feel called on your own, or you can also do this with a practitioner. Like this is a psychotherapeutic modality that is usually guided by a psychotherapist, or like somebody who is versed in this work. But I find that with those of us who have been on the healing journey for quite some time and are anyway in constant communion with their mind body, with their experience, that this can be kind of like an effortless way to retrieve all of the different aspects that are arising, to be greeted with our awareness. Okay, so I really love this way of communing and this way of retrieving consciousness and integrating and coming into divine inner union. And there have been countless of times that I've used this to really integrate such immense pieces of my being. Like my dark masculine came online through this work. My dark masculine came online. So many pieces of my divine feminine also integrated through this work. And it's just amazing how effortless it is, and how powerful it is, and how kind of easy it is to come into divine inner union through this communion. And so with that, I really hope that that is helpful for you or your journey. I love this way of healing because it really gets to the root, to the original point, and it's so connected to our journey towards Genesis, because we're accessing the genesis of the symptom that's showing up. And so much of healing work is like working on our mindset or working on our emotions or like healing our emotions. It's again so much focus on healing the symptom, much like the Western medical system. Everything is approached at the level of the symptom, where this really goes into the depth and acknowledges the root of why the symptom is even presenting itself. So I really love this way of integrating, and this way of accessing our depths, and this way of bringing into the light of awareness that which is requiring our attention. So that was the final part of the path of Genesis, which is the divine union through communion. And I hope that has served you, and that you can re-watch this and take notes if you'd like. And if you feel guided to explore using this way of communing and integrating parts of self for the purpose of walking on our path towards our Genesis, walking on our path towards our true self, our ascended self, our integrated whole self. And if you are feeling full and complete, this is the end of the transmission. And right now I'm going to speak to all of the ways that you can work with me if you are feeling called to, if you are feeling guidance to journey with me in a deeper way. Okay, so with that said, the first way that you can work with me is through one-on-one mentorship. And actually the only way that I'm doing a one-on-one long-term mentorship is through my Ascended Mastery program. That is a year-long commitment. So this is really for individuals who are ready to step into their ascended mastery and who really desire to walk with the support and who really desire the support on their journey long term, like a long term commitment. So this 1 year program is like there's 2 more spots available for this year, and it is a journey of coming back to our wholeness. It is a journey of coming back to our Genesis. It is a journey of integrating our ascended master self and receiving support and guidance for wherever you are on that path. Okay, and then another way to work with me one-on-one is through a 3-month mentorship. And at the moment, I'm only receiving like waitlist applications. There's no current openings for that. And the last part that I would like to talk to everyone about is actually the Genesis Practitioner Training Program. So the Genesis Practitioner Training Program is the training for this unburden method is a training for you to be a practitioner of this unburden method that stems from this family systems therapy that can be used to work with your clients, that can be used to journey with for your own path, that can be used to really gain a solid foundation for guiding people and individuals or your clients on their path to healing, to really access, like I said, the original wound, the original trauma that we can alchemize and integrate into our being and exalt. And this training also includes a trauma-informed lens. So there's going to be a really big piece on trauma-informed practices and how we as practitioners, as healers, as coaches, as mentors can work with people through a trauma-informed lens, which is really, really important. So those are kind of the two big pieces to this training, is this certification in the unburdened method, where you will be certified to guide your clients and to guide anyone on your path to retrieving these core aspects of self, to retrieving all of the fragmentation that we experience, to healing any and all symptoms of the mind or the body. So this is a method to heal literally anything from like asthma to headaches to any and all symptoms that we can experience with this mind body. So it's really, really beautiful and potent and powerful, especially when we can serve others with this process of healing core wounds and traumas. And also within this Genesis practitioner training, there will be trainings on how to guide our clients through emotional work, through healing emotions, and in that healing of the emotions, how to access our like non-aligned mindsets and our unconscious belief systems to rewrite them. So the big piece of the training is being certified in the unburdened method that's going to help your clients retrieve and heal and alchemize all of the trauma that they're carrying. And in addition to that, big piece with the unburdened training is the trauma-informed healing, and then like the emotional and the mindset guidance and facilitation. Okay, so I also have a little free PDF training on trauma-informed practices for anybody that is interested in receiving that. You can send me a DM. And then anybody who is interested in joining the Genesis practitioners training, if you're feeling a yes, if you're feeling called to join us, there's going to be a $1,111 discount for probably the next week. And then this training will start at the end of January, and I'm going to come out with all of the details. Like I believe it's going to be January 27th. And so the full price of this program is $2,222. And for, like I said, I believe like the next week for this group, for all of the members of Soul of Sophia and anybody watching this masterclass, there's going to be $1,111 off. Okay, I'm just going to check in. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being here and for receiving and for joining me on this masterclass, joining me on Genesis that I feel so grateful to share with everyone because it has been such a big part of my journey and a big part of my mission and a big part of the work that I do in the world. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask any questions or to send me a DM. If you're interested in working with me in any capacity, like whether that's through the Genesis practitioner training or my one-on-one mentorship, then please reach out. I'm sending everyone so much love and many blessings. Thank you.